So you need a controller for your PC, but first-party options are too expensive, and you're just not sure about the quality of third-party controllers around. Where can you find a controller that doesn't break the bank and works very well on PC? Well, the answer might be in this third-party wired Xbox One controller from PDP. It sells for a very solid $39 at Big W. I've used mine for close to a year now, so I decided to share my thoughts on this controller. Keep in mind that I will be occasionally comparing it to the DualShock 4, as this is the only other controller I've had lots of experience with that actually has a good reputation. Sorry DualShock 3. I will also be reviewing my experience with it on PC as I don't have an Xbox One console. With that out of the way, let's begin. In the box you will find the controller, a very lengthy and removable micro USB cable, great to see PDP, and some documentation that no one asked for. Setup was very easy and for most games required nothing to be done at all beyond plugging it into your machine. The controller feels really good in the hands, with ample weight and size, bringing it very close to the experience of a real Xbox One controller. Even the triggers felt similar to the Xbox One controller's triggers, and they managed to feel better than the DualShock 4's triggers. The only signs of cheap design were in the A, B, X and Y buttons, which had this cheap glossy printing on them. Thankfully the rest of the controller worked fine, with a few exceptions. More on that later. The controller also has a 3.5mm headphone jack in the bottom, meaning you can plug your headset in. I haven't had any need to do this as I just connect my headset to my PC, so I'm not sure how well it works. There are also these weird symbols in the D-pad. I'm not sure what these are for, and I have a hunch that these features are for the Xbox rather than PC. One thing I was concerned about was the rumble. Often the rumble on budget controllers feels quite cheap, like it's going to rattle the insides of your controller to oblivion. Thankfully this wasn't the case with PDP's offering. The rumble felt full and was not rattly in any way at all. The joysticks and triggers are also able to be variable in how little or how much you push them in, meaning you can make characters walk slowly in games that support it, and in driving games you can make your driver accelerate a bit more slowly than what it otherwise would have done if it always went full speed. Really is fantastic to see third-party controller manufacturers focusing on this stuff. Sadly though, not everything is all butterflies and rainbows about this. Sadly though, not everything about this controller is perfect. The joysticks, though they can thankfully be clicked in, you cannot click the joysticks in while pointing it fully in any given direction. This could be a deal breaker for you. Thankfully it wasn't for me because on PC you can just remap a lot of the controls, if not all of them. But on something like an Xbox One, where button remappability isn't as prevalent, you might have some issues there. The bumpers also felt a bit off for me. It seemed as though the click you feel when you push the bumpers in isn't at the same point as the actuation point, which means that you feel a click and then you have to sometimes push a little bit more to actually make it activate, whatever you're trying to do on the machine. This is a very minor issue after a while though, but I'd be lying if I'd said it didn't throw me off a few times. The controller also has its own software, albeit not fantastic software, but despite all the negative reviews, I had no issues with it. The software is quite handy for testing diagnostics and changing a few settings, but ultimately I could have lived without this given that the PC allows for much greater fidelity in this sort of thing. The software is on the Xbox One as well though, so perhaps it might be of greater use there, where you can't do as many things with regard to chat and game volume as you might be able to on a PC. Sadly this software only works on Windows 10 and the Xbox One, with no Linux or macOS support. However, do note that in my experiences so far, the controller itself has worked perfectly in every Linux game I've tried. PDP's wired controller offering should work very well for most casual gamers. The software, though rather lacking in polish, does exactly what it says on the box. However, if you're a more avid gamer that plays lots of complex titles, or any game that involves pointing a joystick in a direction and clicking it in to do something at the same time, you won't have much luck here unless you can remap the controls. If you have that in mind though, you shouldn't be disappointed by this offering.